This is Big Podcast.
All right, let's talk voiceover. Pretty fun gig. Some more fun than others. I don't really care for audiobooks or something like that, but commercials are fun. I've done a few of those. Tried out for VeggieTales once. There was a knockoff of King of the Hill. This thing never happened, but it starred Billy Bob Thornton. I was going to be the kid. A pretty cool gig. We're going to talk about that. Maybe some options for you. You use your voice on a podcast. Not that much different. It's Build a Big Podcast, the marketing podcast for podcasters. If you want to grow your podcast, get more people to your podcast, make a podcast that people care about, make a podcast that makes you money, this is the podcast for you. My name is David Hooper. BigPodcast.com is the website. Every Friday morning, New York City time, I release a newsletter. That goes out via email. It is at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is the audio edition of that newsletter. Here's what I'm going to cover. How did you get that voiceover gig? Blue Sky adds 1 million new users in a week. Twitter loses users. It's actually beyond that. It's a mass exodus. How many voters did Trump and Harris reach via podcast? The best microphone for podcasting. The voice of AOL's You've Got Mail greeting has passed. Also, how he got that gig. And classified ads for you, things that will help you to grow your podcast, get more people to your podcast, make more money with your podcast, the things that this podcast is about. This episode of Build a Big Podcast is brought to you by Riverside.fm. Studio quality recordings anywhere. Meaning, if you're like me in Nashville and you want to talk to somebody across the country or across the world, you're going to sound like you're in the same room. You've got multi-track recording. That's great for editing. And speaking of editing, they have text-based editing. So if you want to take out big chunks of your recording, something you know that's not going to work, it's easy. Silence remover, filler word remover, that's AI-powered. Also, AI-powered highlights. They call them magic clips. This takes your long-form audio or video, and it breaks it up, finding the highlights of your podcast, making something for social media, something you can use to promote your podcast and get more people to your podcast. If you want to try it, yeah, you do. Here's how to do it for free. Go to Riverside.fm. They're going to give you a couple hours to look under the hood, kick the tires, do an interview, do 2 interviews, see how you like it. If you do like it, and you will, this is the discount code to get 15% off. It's a Big Podcast, BIGPODCAST. Go to Riverside.fm, get your free account, take it for a spin if you want to stick around. The discount code to get 15% off. Big Podcast, BIGPODCAST. That's Big Podcast, BIGPODCAST. You know how this works. I'm going from thing to thing to thing, all of them about podcasting. This is issue number 207. If I get to the end of the thing and you want more information on it, you want links, go to newsletter.bigpodcast.com. And just to make sure you know that I'm going to the next thing, you're going to hear this sound. That's how it works. You ready? Here we go. How did you get that voiceover gig? In podcasting and voiceover work, sometimes good things happen when you least expect them. For example, I know a guy who was one of the Budweiser frogs. Remember those guys? Budweiser. Those dudes? Well, they're real people. And this guy, he was working at an ad agency. It's here in Nashville. Just happened to be walking down the hall. They're recording the ad. Hey, man, can you come in here and say this? Bud. He did. And his life changed. It was a Super Bowl ad. It was a highly effective campaign. And this guy, he's probably still making royalties off that. Let's put it that way. You know the infamous You've Got Mail tag from AOL? That was recorded to cassette. And that guy, we'll go into it a little bit in a minute, he got the gig from his wife. There was a company called Q-Link, Quantum Link. It was for Commodore 64. Steve Case was the boss. Steve Case went from Q-Link to AOL. And he was thinking about this stuff. What if we had a voice greeting? You've got mail. She said, I know a guy who could do it, my husband. Goes home, records it on cassette. The rest is history. I'll get into that a little bit more with you later in this episode. Another cool voiceover story, kind of. Corona Beer. They have a holiday commercial. Feliz Navidad. Dudes at the beach, palm trees, warm weather. It's a twist on a traditional winter holiday commercial. Dude goes into the studio. He's supposed to be recording his guitar, and he's humming the melody, whistling the melody. It turns out he's too good at the guitar. They were looking for somebody who was more of an amateur. This is a Nashville guy. But he's whistling the melody just to get in the mood of it. I don't know, humming the melody. I said, well, no. Just do that. So they hired him to play guitar, but he actually whistled the melody. It's been running for probably 20 years. And that guy, by the way, is the producer for my radio show, Music Business Radio. That's how I know that story. Just happened to be in the right place, right time, just like the Bud guy, just like the You've Got Mail guy. There's so many stories like this in voiceover. You know, I had that thing with Steve Martin. There's a movie called It's Complicated, Alec Baldwin. Steve Martin is in the car and he's playing a tape. Well, that's my tape. It happens. It happens when you would least expect it. Say yes to opportunities. That's my advice. Say, no, I've never done that. Why not? Do a commercial, do a book, do something. It's going to make your podcast better. The more that you can step out of hosting what you host, whether that's doing an interview when you don't do interviews or doing a monologue when you do interviews, that's going to make you a better voiceover talent. This stuff happens. You got one of these stories? I want to know. You can reach out to me via Mastodon, Blue Sky, or Threads. You don't have one? Keep showing up. The more you show up, the more you keep doing this stuff, the more opportunities that you have. I never would have thought I would have done that thing with Steve Martin, but I did. And the way that happened, let me go into that just a second so you know. They found this book that I had been involved with. It was a book about divorce. They put it in the movie. The deadline came up. They weren't able to clear the rights on it in time. They didn't even let me know about that. They reached out to me afterwards. And at that point, you're good. I've seen this happen a lot, actually, Super Bowl ads. Speaking of Super Bowl ads, I know a guy, his song was used in a Super Bowl ad. I don't know what these guys were thinking. Everybody's going to see this ad. They're going to hear it. This dude's going to know that his song was used. They had to do the clearance afterwards because they didn't have time beforehand. And at that point, he can say, yeah, I want $1 bajillion. And there's nothing they can do. Now, it doesn't happen exactly like that, but you are in a very good space negotiating-wise if somebody has used your stuff ahead of time. And they will use it because they're on deadline and they've got to get it out. And they said, we'll just figure it out. They've got that in the budget. Say yes to opportunities. Do it. If you've got a story like this, let me know. You can find out more information about that. You can see that Corona commercial, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 207. Let's talk about Big Podcast AMP. Speaking of making money in the voiceover and podcasting business, Big Podcast AMP stands for Audio Monetization Program. It's a personal coaching program that's going to help you do 3 things. 1, grow your podcast audience. 2, get people talking about your podcast. And 3, make more money with your podcast and your podcasting skills, such as voiceover. If you want to talk, let's talk. Bigpodcast.com/AMP. That's how to get more information. Bigpodcast.com/AMP. Got questions? Reach out to me. You know how to find me. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Blue Sky adds 1 million new users in a week. I'm going to have to update this because it's a lot more than 1 million now. It's incredible. Blue Sky was created by the same guy who created Twitter. If you're not on Blue Sky, you get on there, you're going to think you're on Twitter, especially now. Engagement is at an all-time high. It is a great time to sign up. People are leaving Twitter. I'm going to talk about that in the next segment. Blue Sky is wonderful. If you want that short, what they used to call microblogging experience, it is very nice. It's been around for a couple of years. I've had my account, I don't know, almost 2 years, at least 1.5 years. These things don't work unless you've got what they call the network effect. It's like a fax machine. If you got nobody to fax to or nobody to send you a fax, it doesn't really work. The more people that have it, the better that it is. And that's what's happened with Blue Sky over the last couple of weeks. Do check it out. I've got all the links. I've got also a link to Mastodon, which is very similar as well. Get set up on it, man. If nothing else, claim your name. It's going to get tougher and tougher to do as more people join these services. I've got everything you need at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 207. Twitter is losing users. I've got an interesting image. You'll find it at newsletter.bigpodcast.com, issue number 207. It's Austrian Airlines. They left Twitter this week, and they've got a witty photo. I'm going to call it witty. It's a cabin crew member, and the caption says, "We took a moment to locate our nearest X-it." Twitter, also known as X. The Guardian made a similar move recently. And I get that. Twitter is not what it was. I stopped using it a long time ago. Engagement, at least for something like a business, to talk about your podcast, that kind of thing, unless you're maybe in the right-wing genre, that's at an all-time low. There are far more bots. There are far more ads. It's not the experience it was. So there are a lot of people that are leaving Twitter because we've got things like Blue Sky, like Mastodon. And again, I would suggest you go join those, even if you're not planning to use them. Get your name reserved. Be ready should you want to move there in the future. If you want to leave Twitter in a big way, there's something called Tweet Deleter. I've got that linked at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue 207. This is the way that I did it. I went on Tweet Deleter. I deleted 16 years of tweets, about 19,000 likes, posts, retweets, replies. I was done. Just not that good anymore. So why keep it up there? I mean, I downloaded the archive. So if I ever needed to find something, I've got it. But nobody else has it. It's not on Twitter anymore. I made the account private. And there's something that says, link in bio for podcast books and up-to-date info. I've got a link on how to do this at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. If you want to see how I'm sending people over to Mastodon and Blue Sky, that's where that is. Should you leave Twitter? I don't know. That's up to you. Again, I think you should join Blue Sky. I think you should join Mastodon, if nothing else, to reserve your name. But if Twitter's still working for you, yeah, by all means, stay there. It wasn't working for me. It's not working for a lot of people. So just be aware that, yeah, you might not need to jump now, but it seems like that's coming. Communities can collapse very, very quickly. And that's what seems to be happening right now. It's really been happening in the last couple of years, but there's that point where, yeah, it's time to leave. More thoughts at newsletter.bigpodcast.com, issue number 207. How many voters did Trump and Harris reach via podcast? I know. The election's over. Most people are sick of hearing about it. But still, we work in podcasting, and a lot of these numbers are coming out to see how these candidates did with their podcasting appearances. This was a big deal. Remember when Obama was on WTF? Oh my gosh, podcasting is legitimate. I mean, yeah, we knew that, but it had never been used in an election like this, and it was used big time. Here's what ended up happening. Less than 30% of all voters were reached. However, reaching all voters, that wasn't the point. Most people made up their minds long ago about who to vote for. They weren't going to switch. These candidates went on podcasts to reach undecided and unlikely voters, not all people who are eligible to vote. They wanted a very specific portion of people who might vote and who they could convince to vote for them. So that's what they did. Podcasts reach a specialized audience that's difficult for other media to reach. You may be one of those people. When's the last time you watched broadcast television? When's the last time you watched cable television? A lot of people on Netflix. A lot of people on Netflix and other streaming services. A lot of people on podcast. People running elections know this. That's where the candidates went. These are the general numbers. Trump reached 23.5 million Americans 18 plus in an average week. Harris reached 6.4 million Americans. What's the difference? Trump arguably went on some bigger podcasts. He also went on about 3 times as many podcasts as Kamala Harris. Take that for what it's worth. I think we're going to start seeing more and more people like this in the podcasting space doing interviews. That's a great opportunity for you, even if you're not in the political space. Because this is also going to work for celebrities. This is also going to work for entertainers, book authors, experts, people that you may be interviewing for your podcast. You want more thoughts on this? You want to see those exact numbers? Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 207. The best microphone for podcasting. Here's a joke for you. Should I set that up by telling you it's a joke? Did I just ruin it? If you're ever feeling lonely and you want to meet other podcasters, get on Facebook and make a post about the mic you use. Within a few seconds, podcasters will come from everywhere to let you know that your mic sucks and recommend something else. You've probably seen that. Maybe you've experienced it. Here's the truth about microphones, though. This is why I call this the best microphone for podcasting. The best mic is the one that you use. If you're not going to use it, it doesn't matter. Don't let it sit there collecting dust. A couple of weeks ago, I shared the 3 ways to make a cheap mic sound better. If you don't like the quality of your audio, start there. I've got a link to that at newsletter.bigpodcast.com, issue number 207. Let me give you a couple quick ones. 1, be in a quiet place. I've got a sound-treated room. You've heard me talk about it. It's a tricked-out closet. It's got a lot of foam. It's got rock wool insulation, which is better than perfect sound absorption. The foam, if you're curious about this, about 0.6. So 60% of reflections are going to be absorbed. Rock wool, over 1. It's 1.05, meaning all the reflections and then some are going to be absorbed. I'm in a small space. It's full of this stuff. There's not a lot of reverb, reflections, echo. And I'm also doing a second thing. I'm close to my mic. Sounds better than when I'm like this and I'm moving my head all around and I'm walking around the room and I don't even know where the mic is because it doesn't matter because I'm talking with my hands and I'm thinking about a video that I'm doing. No. Get close to the mic. Get up on it. Eat it. You ever talk to a sound man? He'd be like, eat the mic, eat the mic. Not literally, but he's meaning get close to it. I don't know, 2 or 3 inches away from it. And by the way, I'm using an RE20 if you're curious about that. You want more thoughts on this? I've got them linked. Newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 207. The voice of AOL's You've Got Mail greeting has passed. This man's name, Elwood Edwards. He died last week in New Bern, North Carolina. He was 74. He was the voice of AOL's Welcome. Remember that? Goodbye. File's done. And You've Got Mail. He made $200 from those recordings. I talked about this at the very beginning of the episode. He recorded them on cassette. His wife was at the company that Steve Case, founder of AOL, was working for. She said, my husband could do that. Can you imagine? Legendary. Let me give you some of the numbers. These are the non-monetary payoffs. At AOL's height, 35 million people heard his voice each day. He made an appearance on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon in 2015. That's kind of nice, feather in your cap, a cool life experience. He added his voice to an episode of The Simpsons. This was in the year 2000. He provided the voice of a virtual doctor that said, you've got leprosy. Should I be laughing at that? Okay. All right. Here's how he got the AOL gig. I've shared a little bit of this. Let me give you a few more details. This was 1989. Again, Q-Link, also known as Quantum Link. It was an early online service. I think there was Genie, which was GE, General Electric, CompuServe, Q-Link. And she happened to overhear Steve Case, that was the CEO. He described how he wanted to add a voice to the user interface. She recommended her husband for the job. That's how it happened. This is giving me an idea. I want to share some how I got that gig stories. I've mentioned a few of them earlier. I mentioned a few of them at the very beginning of this episode, the Corona beer commercial, the Budweiser frogs, my duet with Steve Martin in his movie. Those 3 things, and also this AOL story, all flukes. I'd love to hear yours. You can reach out to me via Mastodon, Blue Sky, or Threads. The links, newsletter.bigpodcast.com. This is issue number 205. Classified ads for you, things to help you grow your podcast, build your audience, and make something people care about. Book Like a Boss will automate your guest booking. If you are tired of missing interviews, Book Like a Boss handles all the little details when it comes to guest booking, automating guest scheduling, automatic reminders, including text messages that are sent to guests, and also you. You ever forgot an interview? It's not going to happen with Book Like a Boss, neither will your guest. It integrates with all email and calendar software. It is great. I've been using it for years. You're going to love it. I've got a special free offer for you at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Audio Pen, the easiest way to convert messy thoughts into clear text, including podcast outlines. You just hit record and start rambling. I can get my phone, pull up the Audio Pen app, hold it up to my mouth, start talking. I want to talk about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, take out 2, put 4 where 2 was. It'll do that. It's all automated. It is going to make your episode prep so much easier. You're never going to lose a great idea with Audio Pen. I've got a link for you to try it for free. It's at newsletter.bigpodcast.com. Thanks for listening to Build a Big Podcast, the marketing podcast for podcasters. If you want to grow your podcast, get more people to it, I want to help you. I talked about Big Podcast AMP, the audio monetization program. If you really want to go deep with me, let's do that one-on-one with me. bigpodcast.com/AMP. And if you want more of these episodes, I'm here for you. You'll find the subscription links at bigpodcast.com. I've got one for iPhone, one for Android, and one that's an RSS feed. You're going to get every episode that I do as soon as I do it delivered to your phone, to your computer, to whatever. Hit bigpodcast.com. Go there right now. Subscribe before you forget. And I'll see you on the next episode of Build a Big Podcast.